rapidly growing industry, CBD products. What we have found throughout the industry were products that were inconsistent in dosage and used ingredients that weren't even lab tested. Products with chalky textures, bitter aftertaste, and worst of all, confusion among the CBD consumers. That's why we created Delight Cafe. A 15 milligram, lab tested, all natural, water soluble hemp CBD powder pack. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Add it to your favorite drink of choice, wherever, whenever, on the go. Quickly find your calm, your balance, and your delight when you need it most.
Good evening, good afternoon, Victor Tango family out there. How are we doing today? I'm the host, Dave Brown, and just want to take a moment here to thank Brandon Croucher for his sponsoring of this show with the Delight Cafe CBD. I've tried the product, and the product is actually something that does calm you down, and I recommend it to all my veterans out there and their families to give it a try. It's odorless, tasteless, and it comes in 15 milligram packets. It's easy. You just put it into a beverage, and you don't even know you're taking it. And the other thing is it's THC free. So just take a look at that if you'd like. So let's get going on the show today. We're going to be talking about veterans issues and dealing with the VA. I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I served in the Marine Corps from 1988 to 1994 on active duty from 89 to 93. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I struggled with issues, but I couldn't put a name or a finger on it, exactly what that was. Didn't have any bullet holes, but I did have intruding thoughts. I had nightmares and things of that sort. I did have issues with hearing loss. I did have issues with migraines. But as I started to do time away from the service and get back into society, I isolated from my friends, my family, and I pushed them all away. And I found that the relationships that I had with the people that I served with were a lot stronger than the ones that I had with the ones back home. So as I pushed on time after time after time, I started to self-medicate, and that comes with problems and that kind of stuff. It wasn't until about 2009 that I started to get an idea of the VA and what actually the VA can do for me. Filed a claim in 2011, and it took me until 2019 to get 100% unemployable as well because of my issues, hypersomnia, all kinds of other issues that go along with that. The reason why I want to share that is because it was a struggle from the beginning. The VA was not an easy organization to work with. It was not an easy process. It wasn't a well-defined process. The people that they have out there helping veterans with those types of things didn't go very well. And a lot of them were new, didn't understand all of the ins and outs. So after a while, I actually became a County Veteran Service Officer assistant in Hennepin County and did some work there myself. So today we're going to be talking to a Marine veteran from back around the same era that I served. And we're going to be talking to his wife as well. And we're going to be discussing their struggles with after service and the fight with the VA and go through that. So let me introduce to you today Jason and Heidi Esterbrook. Jason, Heidi, you there?
We are. Thank you, Dave.
How are we guys doing today?
Good.
Doing good.
Heidi, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure you're there. All right. So why don't we start off, Jason, telling us a little bit about your military service, talk about the unit you were attached to, talk about the places you were, and then we'll move into chronologically talking a little bit about how things progress for you with the VA. So go ahead and start with Marine Corps service.
Sure. So I went in the Marine Corps in '89 and got sent to the fleet in the infantry. So I was an 0311 when I was in. And I was sent over to Desert Storm to the first Gulf War
90.
in August of '90, I guess it was. That was Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I guess. Anyway, I spent 7 or 8 months there until the end of the war, and then we came home. Did you want me to go into the things that I saw over there, or what are you thinking there, Dave?
You can go ahead and talk about some of that stuff, Jason. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
kind of so people have an understanding of the timeline of service and then the things that happened while you were in. Just go in as much detail as you feel comfortable with, and
Yes.
then we'll get into the fight with the VA after that.
Okay, so when I was in, the Marine Corps was very poorly funded. You were in there as well, being very
Still
poorly
is.
But we had weapons that didn't work, and I was in the infantry, like I say, and there were 7 guys in my unit, and I was with 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines, Lehman Company, 1st Platoon. There were 7 guys in my platoon whose M6, or what was it called, the M249 squad automatic weapon did not work. They were very low, very early made for the Vietnam War, and the serial number for my weapon was 005833. How could I possibly remember that?
It was beating your head.
30 years later.
Right.
Anyway,
It was beating your head.
It was beating my head, yes. But 005833, what a piece of junk. It would not let rounds down range, was not reliable. They couldn't fix it.
Sand.
And they told us the first person who goes down take their weapon. That was the start of the war for me. Yep. And I share that story because it affects me still to this day. Yep. But I was over there the whole time knowing that I'm probably going to die. And then when rounds do start flying, and you're faced with having a weapon that doesn't work and trying to fight back, you're just, you feel like a sitting duck. And we were also gassed over there. We had to put our MOP gear on. We had our gas masks on. I remember it clear as day. Everyone's wearing the face mask today, and I can't participate in that. I've tried my best, but it brings me right back to that time in the sand that we were gassed and
gas masks didn't work.
None of it worked.
So let me interrupt real quick and explain to folks that don't understand what MOP gear is. That's the gear that forward deployed service members who are in a combat area would put on if there was a sign of gas or we had an inkling that gas was going to be coming. So it's a whole suit. Back then was a charcoal lined suit that covered our boots, covered our pants, covered our bodies, and it tied into our gas mask. Just so I could explain that to folks, Jason, so people have an understanding that when you have to put on this gear, we're over in 120-degree temperature, putting on a charcoal lined suit to protect ourselves from any gas that's in the air from the attack. So, and then the other thing I wanted to explain, and I didn't do a very good job on the show of this, was talking about the fleet and what that means to a Marine. Marines go through their initial training boot camp, MCRD San Diego, Hollywood Marine. Very proud of it. That's where the real Marines are trained on the West Coast, right?
Hoorah.
But when we talk about going to the fleet, that means that we've gone through all of our initial training. So that's boot camp, and then that's School of Infantry. And then they've moved us on to our unit where we're actually considered active Marines at that time. And so that's when we refer to the fleet in these conversations today. We're going to be referring to actually being out with the other active duty Marines doing our job. Brian says mop gear is so cool and refreshing to wear. Yeah, yeah. Right, Brian. Yeah,
It is. Yes, it is. And that gas mask.
Hollywood.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, the gas mask was a treat too. So Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify that stuff for folks that are listening to the show who may not understand what it's like to be over there and what that gear is.
Absolutely. I just always consider everyone knows that. But so that was my time in the war, and there's a lot to it. There's a lot that I remember just because of what I've gone through recently in my
he was 18 when he went through this too.
18, 19 years old. Yeah. My wife was at home. We were already married
for 3 months when he left.
Yeah. After the war, came home. I put in for a hardship discharge. And they were letting people out left and right. I was ready to move on with my life. I'd had enough. When you're, I love being a Marine, but when they send you in with a weapon that doesn't work, they love you too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And anyway, we got out and we started our life, our marriage together, and we had our first baby 9 months after the war, our first daughter, and then. I started the civilian life. We just got out, we just went to work, and I started having nightmares. I started having episodes where I was extremely violent to my wife, just full of anger, especially in the middle of the night when she'd wake me up so I can go to work. I would harm her in ways that I didn't even know, have her up against the wall, just terrible things. She had to wake me up with usually ice water and a broomstick,
Wow, you just gave us a broomstick.
Yeah. But it was no fun. We didn't know that I had problems.
I just thought he came home and is this supposed to be PG?
No, you can say whatever. It's a military show.
He was an asshole. My father kicked him off the property because his ego was crazy. And I was thinking, this isn't who I married. This isn't who I married. So you go through the trauma of thinking you're going to be a widow at 18, and then he comes home a completely different human than who you married. So I was scared.
Yeah. So, but then as time goes on, we actually went through marriage counseling through our church that we were attending at the time, and divorce was not an option for us. We wanted to make it work.
2 years after you came home.
Couple years after I came home, and then so we worked on our relationship. That was not easy, but we didn't want to give up. She was my high school sweetheart, and then I started getting sick.
I want to go back real quick and just kind of highlight a little bit more Heidi's side of the story too. Heidi, can you share with other people just what you were feeling through all of that and how you were getting through day by day by his side as he was struggling with the man who he was now, and knowing that from the outside you saw this new human, but inside there was still the same person that you married that didn't know how to get back out?
Well, I think, give it some perspective. We were both two broken children that met each other in high school and really didn't depend on anyone else after we met each other. We just connected. We realized that we could take on the world, just him and I mean, very naively thinking. And so when he left, this was before any soldier had email, texting, video, cell phone. This was before. I didn't have a cell phone until way later. So to get myself through it, I wrote him every day, just like journaling, just to, and then he did as much as he could. So then when he came home, I'm thinking naively that, oh, it's over, got through it, moving on. This is when our marriage actually starts.
Right.
So I think my first realization was on the plane ride because, well, he was different when I was calling him, because you know how the Marine Corps doesn't really ever give you details, especially the wives.
Right.
Telling me, I'm hearing rumors for a month before this that he's supposed to be home. So finally, after a month, I said, I am just going to drive to California and I'm going to stay in a hotel. His aunt, his grandfather said, we'll take you. You don't need to go by yourself, blah, blah, blah. Get there, get him. My parents had bought us tickets to fly back. So we're sitting on the airplane. And this was actually the first time I'd ever been on a plane. That's how naive I was. I can't remember which connection. We had to stop like from LA to San Francisco or something. And I'm sitting on the inside, he's on the outside, and all of a sudden he grabs the armrests and I look at him and he's bright red and sweating profusely, and he's grabbing and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And he goes, fucking Arab, fuck. That's all I kept saying. And I'm like, what? And I look up and there's a gentleman that had a turban on his head, had just gotten on the plane. So now I'm thinking, I didn't get it. I still didn't connect it, where I'm like, okay, he doesn't like those people now? I'm so naive. And I'm really not a naive thinker. Anyway, so that was my first experience. So then we get home. He made it through the flight. We get home. He hates the attention he's getting. And then everybody's making a big deal, but he's pulling from it, where he's usually funny and goofy. He's pulling away from it. Then one night, I don't even know where we were, but we stopped at the gas station in our little small town, and he says, I'm going to grab a 6-pack of beer. And I'm like, Jason, you're not 21. He goes, oh, they're not going to know the difference with my ID. I said, okay. So he goes in. I went with him, and so I'm thinking he's going to get away with it. And the guy apparently had seen a military ID, flipped it over, and actually read his birth date and said, I can't sell this to you. He came uncorked at the guy. So I said, Jason, stop. You can't get him fired. I was a checker while he was gone. So I'm like, it's not his job. You can't he's wigging out. And I'm just like, okay, I'll figure it out. I get him to the pickup, and then he burns rubber going out of the parking lot, and all he's yelling is, I can fucking die for my country, but I fucking can't drink a beer. That's all he's yelling. And so I'm thinking, okay, let me out of the pickup. Let me out of the pickup, because he's just going crazy. And then when I start crying is when he starts to calm down. Mm-hmm. So then from there, it was the evening. It was at night when I'd have to wake him up, or he got really, really drunk. And it was usually when the cops would show up at the apartment complex, because a neighbor would hear something that would calm him down. So there was always a point that he could calm, and it's usually when he was going to have repercussions for it.
Yep.
So I knew that from a very early age. And then I just told myself, we got to figure this out. And he was always willing to the extent to change his behavior somehow. So that's why I always stuck with it and thought, okay, it's got to get better.
So Jason, how long did it take for you to be able to knock down that exterior macho ego and be able to work with your wife and move forward into reintegrating back into a normal, and I'm going to throw the air quotes up there, a normal life? How long did it take for that?
I think it's still ongoing.
Yeah, exactly. See?
When he dove into working, and he would always find these employers that would work his ass into the ground. Yeah. And so that was his way of feeling like a man again.
Yeah, I usually filled filled with work. I usually filled my time with work. I came to a point, I was working for a trucking company that Brian was working with us, with me there as well.
Oh, that's what
And I would just work 24/7. Back in '94, I think it was, is when I started working for him, and that's when he put me on call. I had a couple of guys that I supervised at that time, and then it just slowly progressed from there to managing the whole company, and then just finding that I still needed more, so I decided to start my own company.
Yeah, and in there we had daughters, and so that really softened it quite a bit. Now, I'm very thankful. I'm so glad God didn't give us boys, because he was beat when he was younger, and I think that would have come out with this PTSD on boys. So the girls and me, really, he's very soft and gentle. He's a great dad of girls. So I think that helped too. I felt like God just had his hand. Just when it got really, really bad, something good would happen, or he would. To us, we didn't know any different, really. Right. I mean, how do you know there's a problem when you both don't have great examples of an honest relationship? Mm-hmm. So it's just
things that we've had to work through,
and then some situation would happen, and then we would realize things, and then we would talk it out.
Yep.
So I really wish there was a formula to give wives and husbands of coming home from this.
Yeah. Don't we all wish there was a formula to be able to deal with this?
Because wouldn't it be nice to add and you get an equal sign at the end, Right.
Or to know that you're going to make decisions based off of emotions that maybe aren't actually there or true.
Right.
But in my mind, they are. I didn't realize that.
That's my job.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I'm paranoid. I've been paranoid for years, and I didn't even know it. Didn't even realize there was a thing. But I always think the worst is, and I'm always ready to run.
Jane, we are not. We are in Idaho, and he can get fired if he has.
I have a CDL, so. Yeah. But that was how I filled the last 30 years of my life is just trying to work myself into the ground, and I really kept above things while I was working, and the hardest thing for me is when we had to shut down our business, and we had to lay off all of our employees and everything, and
this is 3 years ago.
3 years ago, and then I sat at home doing nothing, and that's when the PTSD came out for me, and I didn't realize that I had even that problem.
Well, it wasn't just we shut the doors on a business. It was a shocking,
it was
horrible to us situation that just hit him at the knees.
Yeah,
and there was nothing we could do about it. We couldn't fight insurance and corporations. That no one in Idaho in this area would help us fight. So we had to just watch it disappear. So it's not just oh, we didn't feel like doing it anymore. I mean, we were slaving and killing ourselves making this business work, because that's what trucking companies do. You don't realize they're not. They spend more than they make, and
it was tough.
So it was,
But now we're through all that. We've got a fresh start. And it's up to the Lord where He wants to take us from here, and we do rely on the Lord a lot.
Finally in therapy because of the PTSD.
Yes.
That's good.
That's kind of where I'm at today, and with my wife along my side. We've been married for over 31 years, something like that. We got together in 87 or 88. 88.
Okay.
And we got married in 90.
Okay.
And so we've been together a while. She's my best friend. She understands me. She puts up with me. I don't know why at times, but we're together.
So let's talk about you left the service and you're back home and you're already having these issues with anger and isolation and that type of stuff. What other things did you medically have to deal with after your service? Chronologically step into some of that too, like getting sick from exposures, that kind of stuff.
Well, there was quite a bit that was unexplained to us. We still don't know. And at the time, wasn't even sure what was going on, but I started having a lot of pain in my body, and I would explain it back then. It floated around in my body. I couldn't explain it any better. But my bones would just ache, and feel like there was they were on fire, if you would, and just burning. And one day it'd be my right arm might last for 2 or 3 weeks. Next time I wake up, it might be in my left arm, might be in my leg, might be in my back. It was unexplainable, and no one could tell me what was wrong. And if I done any hard work, physical labor, we used to have a wood burning stove, and I would go to the mountains and cut my own firewood and chop it up myself with my axe, and gosh, for a month later, I would just be completely sore. My muscles would hurt, and I just didn't have energy to recover. And that was not like me. I used to be a long distance runner. I could run for miles and miles, no big deal,
Before the war.
And gosh, in my 20s, I was still, really thin, muscle, really good shape. But they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Well, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And then it was when I started having bleeding issues that really kind of freaked both of us out. And so we rushed up to the VA hospital just because we didn't know what to do. You go to the regular hospital, they don't know what's wrong with a veteran, and they're going to treat you for something that I don't know when I got hurt.
Right.
I have no idea what's going on with me, so they don't even know how to treat you. So we decided then, let's go to the VA. Maybe they can help us, and that was our start with dealing with the VA. After sitting there,
we were clueless.
We were clueless.
On all of it. Why aren't you doing this? Why didn't you have an out of separation exam? No,
we didn't have none of that.
They don't.
None of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the start of the VA, and then I was seeing one of the area reps, the county reps for the veterans, and telling him, hey, I got these problems, and I want the VA to look at me. And then in the early 90s or something, they started something about the Desert Storm Registry or something like that, if I remember right.
Desert Storm Syndrome.
So I had to go through all of that. They put me through all of their screening and whatnot, and trying to figure out what was wrong with me or if I have any ailments. As far as my sore muscles not being able to do what I used to be able to do when I was in my 20s, I can't even do half of what I did then.
Right.
Or a quarter.
Right.
Getting a little soft nowadays, but whatever. They would put me through all their physical fitness tests, and I'd just blow them out of the water, and they're like, well, there ain't nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You're not even trying me,
Right.
Do a lot more than what you're even throwing at me. And this exam is worthless, it doesn't represent me, I mean, I always done a perfect PFT in the Marines, and beyond, if they would score more than a 300, I would do it, Yep. They would ask me to get down off of the pull-up bar because, when you're up to around 50, you're just kind of wasting time when you only had to do 20,
Yep, exactly.
Hey, Esterbrook, get down,
What else?
Let me explain a couple things. So people who aren't familiar with military stuff again and VA stuff have an understanding of what we're talking about. So you brought up the Gulf War syndrome, which is a syndrome that they started to talk about in the late 90s. And so they started a Gulf War Registry for veterans who had been over in the region of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, any of those countries over there, Bahrain, to be able to have a physical and get a base of where you are health-wise and determine if you have any issues from the service at that point. The other one that I wanted to talk about was PFT. You just mentioned, so people understand what that is. That's a physical fitness test. We had to do those twice a year on active duty just to prove that we were still physically fit to the level of what we needed to be, so that they knew that when we got out to a situation, combat area, any area where we needed to actually perform physically, that we were ready to go. And so that was a way for them to test that stuff. Also, I want to talk about, we're talking about the same VA that was dealing with about 15, 20 years before the Gulf War, were dealing with the Vietnam vets. And they still were struggling with putting together a list of presumptive causes and things from the Agent Orange exposure. And all these guys were dying of cancers and all that stuff. So we were supposed to walk in there and trust them to be able to tell us what's wrong with us too. So you talk about the civilian doctors having an issue with trying to figure out what we got. The VA wasn't doing anything either. So I just want to put that on there too, so that people have an understanding that the VA wasn't very good at that point either. So sorry I cut you off, but I just wanted to throw some clarification out there for others that are going to be watching. So
yeah. So just to clarify, so as far as my physical fitness, like I said, I think it was a score of 300, and that was a perfect PFT test. The running, right? We had to do 3 miles in 18 minutes, or you had a little bit longer. 3 miles, 18 minutes was a perfect PFT.
Yep.
I would do 3 miles in about 16 minutes. I mean, so and then, like I said, they would ask me to get off of the pull-up bar, because when you hit 50, that's plenty. You only had to do 20. Sit-ups, no big deal. I didn't have any physical problems when we'd start a run or whatever, or a hike. I was in front. I mean, I'm leading the way. I was always that way. I was born a farm kid. Worked on a farm my whole life. The endurance levels that I had was great. I mean, I could just go and go. And then as I'm in my early 20s, that starts diminishing to a point where a cord of wood. Okay, a cord of wood. If most people understand what that is, a cord of wood to take a chopping block and chop a cord of wood for a young 20-year-old that's that physically fit should not be sore for a month afterwards. Shouldn't. To a point where that I ached, I hurt, and with no explanation. They would fill me with Motrin, I believe is what used to use back then, and I would get it by the 1,000
milligram.
Yeah, it's just they would just load me up. Here you go, and that's not necessarily good for you, to live off of. But when you're in pain all the time in your 20s, doesn't make sense.
Right.
And we just had a struggle trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and they never really could figure out what was wrong with me. They finally diagnosed me with fibromyalgia.
Well, that was just recently.
No, that was back in '97. Fibromyalgia. What is the other one? Where chronic fatigue syndrome. That doesn't even make sense to me, but whatever. That's one of my disabilities. And then they had also in '97 diagnosed me with a neurological disorder, meaning I had no, that was not the migraines, but not neurological disorder, meaning there was something wrong with my brain. That was never discussed with us, me or my wife.
None of that was ever discussed.
Right.
The results.
Yeah.
They just started sending him a check every month.
Yeah. We didn't realize that we even put in for a check every month, but apparently we did. And they, at that time, gave me 30% disability. And So, you know, we just continued to work. We'd continue to go to the doctors there at the VA.
The other thing, because back to his question, is you had lung issues in your 20s. In the winter, you could hardly breathe.
Right.
He ended up getting shingles in his 20s, and that's what we kept hearing. You shouldn't be experiencing any of this. This is an old man disease.
Yep.
So I kept thinking, well, what's going to happen to him when he is an old man? And here we are.
We're getting there.
So
we'll define old man.
Random stuff. Yeah, now we 50 is
70s old, plus.
But at the time, and they told him he'd probably be in a wheelchair by the time he was 50. I mean, that's what they tell you, and it's been very frustrating.
So we've had to battle and try to take care of my ailments naturally, you know, and we do the best we can there. I have back issues now that started in my 30s, which were unexplained. You know, I did not work a physically challenging job or career. I worked in a desk. Prior to that, I drove truck for a little while. I did not hurt my back at any point in time in my life. Did I recall at all? Never been in an accident, nothing, just nothing. And when I was in my early 30s, 35 or somewhere around there, I had blown 3 discs in my back, and I couldn't hardly stand up. I don't know what happened. One time I was literally just churning, and I could feel the twinge in my back, and next thing you know, I can't walk, you know.
Are you sure Heidi wasn't dropping you on your head when you were sleeping?
She could have been. I wouldn't even blame her.
Left him in the car to take him to the VA. I gave him a pillow.
She did. Yeah.
But he didn't want to go. That was the other bad thing. Now we have a clinic in Twin. For many years, we had to travel 2 hours to Boise just for him to be seen. And half the time we didn't even know what we were going in for, because you just got to go through the ER because you know, and now with COVID, we're back, I think, at least 10 years
or more.
They don't even want you on the premises.
They don't.
Yeah. Unless you have a medical necessity.
Well, even then,
for you to be there.
Unless you're dying, like they told me back early last year. Well, we probably should see you. You know, I'm like, okay, great, yeah.
We probably should see you.
Yeah,
you're a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, so the process with the VA. Let's start with that. I mean, going to see the doctors and then them not being able to do that. Talk about your care and talk about your experience with the physicians and the staff at the VA. You know, compare it as you had made your interactions with them throughout the time, and kind of explain
because
where you've been.
Okay, so I don't want to diss the VA in any way, shape, or form. People that work in the VA, there is some wonderful people that really try their best for the veterans, and I have met some great doctors, some great physicians assistants, some great nurses that will do whatever they can to help us veterans. You know, me personally, and so I've had great experience. It's the system that you got to go through when you want to try to make an appointment. It's going to take you can plan on at least sitting on hold for an hour before you actually talk to a person, and then you get juggled around to each department, and you know, I mean, that part has always been that way. It's difficult. Now their phone system, anytime you call in, all you hear is for the first 15 minutes about how we're in this pandemic and everything, and it's like, how many times I just need to make an appointment, you know? Can't we skip that?
Or refill your prescription.
Or refill your prescription. I don't have an extra half an hour to sit there on the phone trying to just, you know, it's tough. It's very difficult to wade the system of the VA. And but the people that work there are some wonderful people that are in it to take care of the veteran. They care wholeheartedly about the veteran.
I just want to clarify what we're talking about in terms of the VA, because the VA, air quotes, is a huge organization, and they have many departments that work on different programs that are out there for veterans, from the disability claims to healthcare to home loans to career assistance and education. So there's so many things that are out there. The ones that we're specifically talking about right now is VA healthcare, which would be a hospital or a clinic, and the doctors and the staff in those organizations. So I agree with you. The majority of the people that I've run into at the hospital that I've had, when it comes to just my healthcare, they've built a health team around me that they all communicate together when I have issues, and so that they can communicate on what they've seen, or, you know, be able to talk about it and network and come up with a plan for any of the things that I'm going through. One of my frustrations, though, is the phone tree trying to get my prescriptions. I shouldn't have to struggle so much to get my darn prescription delivered to my house every 30 days so that I can take it. And don't tell me that I can't put in for it to be refilled when it says I have refills. Just send the damn thing to me. I need it. And so that's one piece that I get frustrated with. But I'll get off my soapbox on that right now. But you do once you get seen, you have great people. So let's talk about your experience with the county veteran service officer who works for the county, doesn't work for the VA itself, and then the ratings process and how that went for you for getting your disability benefits through the VA.
So the first time back in '97, when they gave me 30% disability, me nor my wife understood the process at all.
Yeah,
we didn't even realize we were going to get money. I just wanted to be seen from the VA because they should know what us military guys have been through. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even realize there was such a thing as getting money each month.
And it's usually out of somebody's home. I mean, it's usually a veteran, and it's usually someone that understands the system. And we've probably had in the last 30 years, maybe 3 or 4 of them because of changing counties or changing, they retire. But that is the key. You have to find, I mean, if anyone's watching this, a wife, a young veteran, they have to find that rep, because you can't just walk in and say, here I am.
Come see me.
They understand the system, and the hospital itself, the doctors themselves don't know everything about the system. And if we ask questions, it sometimes gets helped and sometimes doesn't. But the first thing is you've got to get your foot in the door. And the only way to do that is this rep, because apparently it's an exclusive club and it is socialized medicine. So you're put where you're put, and it's an extension of when they were in the military, how you may not see the same doctor every time, or they can get you in that is the most important link right there, is that county representative.
Yep. And some states don't have county reps, so they have to go with national organizations. But I believe all the national organizations are represented in every state. So, for example, the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legions, American Vets, Vietnam Veterans of America, the Disabled American Vets. I mean, there's a lot of organizations out there that can help with that too. I was a veteran service rep, and so I had the ability to be trained by the VA so that I do understand what pieces I was able to work with and how I could manipulate those to be able to have a successful claim for a veteran for any of the programs that they're trying to do, including getting enrolled into healthcare.
Because of the fact that things are denied so often, you need that person to reword it or need them to just resubmit it. I mean, we don't even know. No one knows. Even the soldier himself has never done this type of paperwork before. Everything's put in front of them, and boom, they sign it, they get their shots, they get whatever. And then half the time the wife, while they're in military, is told, we don't have to deal with you. And so we're kind of put in a spot where for a while I didn't want to help because of the fact that everybody kind of treated me like I was not important. And then
if the Marine Corps thought Jason needed a wife, they would have put one in his sea bag.
He was told that.
Because I got married without asking permission.
Ooh.
Staff Sergeant Zatch told me that straight up.
And they were going to
Marine
go.
Corps wanted you to have a wife. I would have issued you one.
That's what he was told. Because they were going to send him to Japan for 2 years after the war.
However long.
And he was like, screw that. I'm going to go with the bush cuts and I'm getting out.
Time to move up. Yeah.
Did my part.
So Dave, there is something that I want to bring up that I feel is really important that maybe some veterans are going through right now currently, or as they retire, or as they have job changes, which that's happened a lot this last year and a half, 2 years, 3 years for me. When I had a life change, and like I said, when I quit working, my world went into my head was filled with darkness. I didn't know what to do anymore, and I started with depression. I wanted to kill myself. I literally wanted to kill myself because of the spot that I was in. I convinced my wife that I had to go down to the shop to do some work. I had my gun in my hand, and I was ready to pull the trigger. And I had a brother reach out to me, a brother in the Lord reach out to me and call me and said, Jason, is there anything I can do for you?
Well, in that moment.
He didn't know what I was going through. He didn't know that I was dealing. But and I says, yeah, could you just pray for me? And so he started praying for me. And I start weeping, and then he starts quoting scripture. And when he got done, I thanked him. We hung up the phone. I got on my knees and I begged Jesus to be with me. And I had enough. I had enough. That was my rock bottom. And if you're faced with that, there is always a way out. And I started mending from that moment on, but it's been 3 years. 3 years of trying to figure out life, and you know what? I still haven't figured it out. Do I live better today? I'm not depressed anymore. We're moving on.
That was another big change.
It was a big change. But the reason why I want to bring that, I'm sorry, Mama. What's that?
Again, before he went to war, he was always the positive, always to the point where it's a fault with him at times, where he's so positive thinking. Mm-hmm. My game in life is to deal with depression and anxiety. Always has been. So when this had happened to him, it shocked me because this isn't him. And I'm like, what is going on? And so as a family, we worked through it.
We did. So what I did to combat that, because I was afraid to drive, because I was willing to run into other cars going down the road, hoping that they would actually stay in my lane as they're passing someone oncoming. That's nowhere to be. That's nowhere to be. I recognized that I had an issue in my head and I couldn't figure it out. I had to go to an appointment at the VA up in Boise for a cancer, a checkup or something. And
screening.
Yes.
And we were told down here I couldn't go. I need to put that in
Okay,
there.
this was before COVID. But I went up there and they ended up putting me in the suicide prevention center. Mm-hmm. And because they thought that because I was losing it. I would just break down. I would cry. I would have panic attacks. I didn't even know what they were. I'd have anxiety attacks. I didn't even know what they were. And this has all been explained to me since. But and then I kept having these attacks. I could be driving. I started a new job right after my business. I took about a year off, and I decided I better get to work, so I started a new job, and at the same time, my back got hurt. We had to move and whatnot. So I started a new claim with the VA saying, "Hey, I need some help. I can't even hardly walk anymore, because I was almost approaching 50, thinking that wheelchair is just right around the corner for me."
Mm-hmm.
So I started the process. I started a new job, like I said. That was a huge trigger for me, and I didn't even realize it. And I continued to have these panic attacks. One day I was sitting at the stoplight, and I just start crying, and I'm like having this attack that my world is falling apart. So I just grab the steering wheel and I turn and I go around the block and right back to the VA center, and I walk in and I say, "I need help." And they're like, "What's the matter?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Something's wrong with my head." Which they're kind of used to me in there
and
now.
then I'd like to interject. He said it was the worst, or what did you say? Anyway, it triggered him to go to work.
Yeah.
But if he wrote it out and waited 6 months, it was what he needed. It was actually part of the healing process.
Yeah.
He just was at a point of the panic and not understanding, but writing it out, that was the one thing that was helping him, was to be active. And me as his wife, I understood that. So it was me almost pushing him. You've got to have something to do, and we can't afford to buy more hobbies. So you have to get a job. And I really believe the 9 months of him looking was to break him down. But then when he got the job, and they're great people, and it was the right place to be, is when the healing really started.
Yeah, so there's a purpose, and he enjoys what he's doing.
And that's men need that period.
Right. So that day that I went to the clinic here, when I had a breakdown, that's the day that probably my life started to change and get better as well. Because as far as the VA goes, I sat with a nurse that I see in there all the time, Nestor. If you ever see this, hi Nestor. But anyway, he's been the only one that I've trusted that has he's really taken care for me. He got me in touch with the correct counselor for the VA, cleared that guy's schedule for the day, and sent me there. And I sat there. And I was very uncomfortable, and any veterans that go through this, you might be too, but just write it out. I mean, I kept going to this guy. I go there every Thursday.
Except today.
But
and I hope you make it to next week, buddy.
Yeah. But that's been the best thing for me. And he explained to me what PTSD is. He helped me with the process of, and the county rep getting me in touch with the right people at the VA to help me with my PTSD. So today I'm now 90% disabled. So and they take care of me every month. I get to go see them, or every week. I'm sorry. So there is hope to try to figure out what you're going through. I've been able to figure it out, and I no longer fill my days with work. I'm there. It's a minimal job for me. I don't have to work around the clock. I make enough money to we make plenty of money, but
we don't have children at home.
And we don't have children.
Well, you want 3
left?
No.
They done grew up and
they're adults, and they can have their lives.
Yes.
That's great. And want to go back just a second to the importance of understanding PTSD as well. Some people and some groups think that there is a cure for PTSD, and that they can cure that mental health piece for you. I come from the camp that you can get to a great place of living, but there still are things that are going to trigger it, that are going to intrusive thoughts, there's going to be all kinds of things that can just hit you from the external world that can put you in that loop, which is why you need to have that support group, that mental health backing from the VA. And then the other piece to it is to have a supportive family too, and be able to be open and honest with them and share with them the things that are actually going on with you, and not just sit there and hold it all in. You got to be able to share with your family as well. Because that's another piece for me, as well as it was for you, Jason. I went to the Lord with my issue too when I got to that little point where I was going to eat a bullet. And so, and that's the piece. You got to find what works for you. If you pray to God, find God, because He's there. And if you pray to Allah, He's there. If you believe in whatever your higher power is, just like the Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or any of those programs say, find your higher power and lean on them for support. They never promise to cure anything, but what they can do is they can make a better tomorrow for you. And that's what we're working for, is each day taking a step and getting ready for a better tomorrow. And that's what we want to help with these other folks coming home, and the people who have not leaned into their mental health issues to get things figured out for themselves and for their families. From our conversation last week, we were talking, or earlier this week, we were talking about, the number of 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And that's a popular number that you hear all over from statistics. And it's too high. It's too high of a number. And we really need to drive that number down by education and by getting out there and talking to people and letting them understand that they're not the only ones going through this, that there are people who are going through this or have gone through this, but have also found a plan to start moving forward and continuing with their life instead of being hermits in their house or pulling themselves away from society. As much as some of those things suck, they still got to do them for your family, because the memories that they make for them too is important for you. So I appreciate your candid conversation, and enjoy having a conversation with you too, Heidi. Is there anything you would like to say before we close out today?
Whoever made the comments, thank you for when you complimented. It was a woman, Jane. Anyway, thank you, because you yes, her, Jane Stanley. Thank you. And it's not hard, but then it is hard, and that's pretty much how life is, I think. And we don't have it all figured out, but we're trying really hard to figure each other out. And that's the key to sticking together, and his willingness to change, no matter how stubborn he is. Eventually he can get there. And then my willingness to make things work, and for him to listen more often. But it is what it is. And he's a great guy. He's worth all the stuff we've been through. I mean, I would never want to start over, because it's like, wow, we've put a lot into this marriage, and it's more about him and I than it is about all the external stuff.
Right.
It just so happens that we have to deal with the PTSD. And
so one last comment that I want to bring up, as far as
he's definitely stubborn.
Thank you.
One thing I'd like to bring up is for veterans that'll see this, and that you might be struggling or whatever, is try to reach out to other veterans. I might not even know a person, but I find out that he's a veteran or he's a Marine, and next thing you know, we're like lifelong buddies, and we're able to talk, and I can share things with him, or him with I, or vice versa, and to help us through. It puts a smile on our face. It takes us out of that dark stage for that moment, and we can move forward. Sometimes we need that, and sometimes we don't want people around us at all.
Right.
And some days just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And those are probably the times that we need them the most, to have a friend reach out to us or to reach out to somebody. So I've got a couple of good friends that I reach out to when I need to talk, and I'm glad they're there for me. I'm there for them, and I'll be there for any other veteran that would ever need anything.
Yeah, and I'm too. And anybody who's watching this show, please share this with other veterans and veteran families so that they can see what we're trying to do here. This whole show is based off of dealing with veteran issues and being able to put that through and put people in a better position than what they are today. I want to say thanks again for coming on and talking with us today.
Absolutely.
We're going to close the show out. And if anybody has any questions or comments, would like to see a type of question answered or a topic for a show, please go to victortangoshow@gmail.com and send us your suggestions and questions, and we'll get to those and talk about them live on our show, on our podcast as we're recording it. This is going to be recorded so we can put it up on our social media so people can reach out and be able to see it as well. Please share that with everybody in your contact list. We're trying to reach out to as many veterans as we possibly can. And then like and subscribe to the show. Really appreciate those people coming forward and joining us in this fight to help veterans. Last thing I'm going to go out with is don't forget to look up the Delight Cafe CBD. Look that up. Try it if you want. I've tried it and I am using it. It works for me. I'm not saying that anybody else should use it or any of that, but you can use it as something that can augment what you're doing with maybe medications or something else like that. And with that, we're going to say we're out for the show, and I'm going to yell a big hoorah!
Hoorah!
Hoorah! Semper Fi. All right, take us out, Fernando.